Hey friends, welcome back to Unlearn with Bianca. If you are tuning in for the first time, then welcome. On this podcast, we explore everything around self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. So on today's episode, I have fellow mind-body practitioner, coach, healer, and I guess longtime friend, Sonja Courtis. And I'll let Sonja share a little bit about herself and her journey soon. Today, our conversation is going to be really focused around the masculine and feminine energies that live within us all. We're going to demystify this a little bit further and talk about how our energies within can really impact our health in a positive or negative way, and also our relationships. And I really wanted to do this episode for a few reasons. I actually listened to Sonja's podcast. She has her own podcast, and she just spelled everything out so easily to understand. And it was just a lot of stuff that I really agree on and see within my clients, as you'll hear soon. But also, this is just a topic that I've had a huge interest in myself. I've run workshops on it on the last few years. And I think on the surface, when you see masculine energy, feminine energy, there's a few barriers that come up for a lot of people. So I really just want to explain these concepts more, so we have a good understanding on it. So welcome, Sonja. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Bianca. So lovely to be here and be with you today.
It's lovely to have you. So yeah, do you just want to start and explain a little bit about what you do, what you're all about?
What I am all about is helping, particularly at the moment, women, although I do work with men a lot, helping women to find that place of self-love and self-acceptance and remembering their own worth. And interesting what you already talked about in one of your episodes, their innate worthiness. But with that comes, I do a lot of work in healing trauma. So I do a lot of that somatic mind-body connection healing to allow people to shift their limiting beliefs about themselves and the world around them and start to believe and have a different frame of the world so they can feel more joy and happiness and empowerment.
What we all want.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know how powerful your work is. I know people that have worked with you. I know my mum used to work with you, and you just do some amazing work. So let's keep this conversation on track and talk about what we're here to chat about. So I want to talk about masculine and feminine energy. Do you mind sharing from your perspective and your own words what this actually means?
Love to. So this information and understanding came from my own personal journey of realization of how I had existed in my masculine energy for a very long time. And so I'm going to explain them in basic terms so that people can start to see and comprehend whether or not there may be some of this playing out in their own lives. So every human has a masculine, feminine energy. It's not, men are not devoid of feminine energy and women are not devoid of masculine. Now, how they show up in our worlds is this. The masculine energy is all about control. It's all about doing. If you think of it from a physiological perspective, a male has a member. You can call it the P word. Am I allowed to say that? And that is the thing that gives. So the masculine energy is all about giving, doing, moving forward, being forward focused, directional, rigid, judgmental. It's all the very left brain logical aspects of ourselves. And the feminine energy, which is the receiving energy through our feminine, organs as they are, like from a sexual mating point of view, our feminine energy is more receptive. It's more in flow. It is about letting things go, being more creative rather than logical. It's about being more playful rather than pressure. It's about being more heart-centered rather than logical again. So it's a much more fluid energy. And so I always, to get people to really understand this, I use the analogy of a river and the rocks. And I say to people, if you were to think of the rocks in the riverbed as being the masculine energy, they're sturdy, they're strong, and they're unmoving. And then the water is the feminine energy, and she can flow in through everything, and through her ability to just flow and not be forcing and pushing things, she
Mm.
can move in and out throughout the riverbed. But the rocks are what allow the river to feel supported, sturdy, and safe. Now, people automatically go, well, that means, and this is the perception in our modern world, that feminine energy is weakness, it's softness, it's you need the masculine energy to get stuff done. Yes, you do. However, let's think about the Grand Canyon. How was the Grand Canyon formed? Over thousands and thousands of years of water moving through and breaking down rocks. So whilst it seems that feminine energy is a little bit soft and weak and ineffective, actually it is incredibly powerful. It is incredibly able to shift situations through just the feminine energy itself, through being more loving, through being more present, through being more intuitive, because water in the Grand Canyon was intuitive. It's able to find those small gaps that it can flow into to create rivers. So feminine energy has been completely ignored of late in the last 40 years, and masculine energy, the do, has become very, very predominant in our society.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So before we get into why that actually is, because there's a few reasons as to why, for those of you guys listening, I had the same, perhaps you're sitting there thinking, oh, this sounds, kind of quantum realm. I'm not quite connecting. These are energies. We all have energy within us. We need both masculine and feminine, like Sonja said, to operate and show up in a productive way, but also being present to life. So I think if you would agree, I think it's good to have a balance of energies within. It's good to tap into one thing when need be and tap into the other energy when need be. But naturally, biologically, often women tend to have slightly more feminine energy, and men typically, usually have more masculine energy. Doesn't matter about the gender, but that's just in that biological level. Would that be correct to
100%.
say?
And that's what I talked about in my podcast on the topic, is this is not about gender. This is about a as you say, it's energies. And so we can't see it, but in terms of our nuanced behaviors, it shows up in our traits. And so you can always tell whether, and you could look at I'll give an example, some lesbian women, and you can tell they are very dominant in their masculine energy, and then other lesbian women completely embodied in their feminine. So it's really got nothing to do with the gender. It's the energy, which is the embodiment, and it's how it shows up in our traits and how we work. It's how we operate in the world. If you look at it from that perspective, it's how we choose to want to operate within our world and our environment.
Absolutely.
And it's either from a place of doing or a place of more being and letting things flow.
Yeah, cool. So it's my belief that, like I just said before, there are certain times where we need to tap in more into our masculine and certain times to tap in more to our feminine. And as business owners, we know you've got to handle both, because I'm doing the two consistently. If we were doing nothing, if I wasn't putting in action and pushing things forward, nothing would get done. And at the same time, if you're doing too much of that in one direction, you burn out. So I think it's a fast track way to get a grasp on your energies. But you did say before that women today, in today's society, Western society, I would definitely say, tend to be operating more out of their masculine energy. So can you explain a little bit, perhaps, as to why this is and what's led us to this way of showing up, if our core energy is generally more feminine?
Well, I like to start by explaining that things operate often like a pendulum. So, if you look at women just in the 20th century, I won't go beyond that, but in the 20th century, the feminine role was the nurturer, the mother, the stay-at-home wife. And that pendulum meant that from that place, there was no role for women to have equality within the workforce, have equality of pay, have equality of opportunities. So then the pendulum was very much, this is your role, this is, and you can see the old-fashioned adverts of the woman at the washing machine
Yeah.
putting the washing in. Nowadays, they have men doing that. So that was where the pendulum sat. And then through the feminist movement of the 60s, 70s and beyond, we had a swing of the pendulum that brought women back over to not the middle, but the other side. Now, the other side is that you can do everything. You don't need a man. A really strong message that, if we, even think about chivalry, the traditional man opening the door, pulling the seat out for the woman, being a leader, leading, saying, this is what we're doing. We're going to go here for dinner. And of course, within that was I don't get a say experience. And then the feminism movement went, right, no, ladies, you get to do it yourself. You get to do it on your own. You don't need a man. Equal rights. And what that actually did was set in motion a program or a belief system that had women believing that we were equal to men, which is true, but we are not the same. And that's the part that's being missed out.
Yeah.
So there's this thing of we do get to be equal, but we are not the same. But unfortunately, the misconstrued belief of the feminist movement was we are the same.
Yes.
Biologically, energetically, emotionally, we are not. And so now the pendulum is right out on the other side, and we're acting like men in this world. We even see women saying, I'll pay for dinner. I don't need you. Oh, don't open the door for me. All of this stuff that has just completely diminished the role of the masculine within society. And now, especially now, right now, in our point in history, we are seeing the effects of the swing over to I am woman, hear me roar. I can do everything.
I think, for a lot of people listening, this might be a new thing to think about, but me and you both see it and we hear it in our conversations with clients daily about the same stresses coming up, which we will go into soon. But I first want to acknowledge, the feminism movement had some huge pros, and we both, I'm sure you agree, for the intention to bring women up to the same as men. Positive intentions, of course, but that point that you said is around, like, biologically we have our differences and we're not meant to be operating at our best on the same cycles. We've got different hormones. The way that our body functions is different. That is a huge key, and I really like the fact that you brought that up. It's a patriarchal world, it's that doing world. That's how we get ahead, right? So I agree. I've definitely felt that myself as well. It's constantly like if we're going into spaces where we are trying to get ahead, it is that doing. It is that I must show up a certain way. I must push through and prove myself. So I can totally see why so many of us women, speaking on behalf of women, are feeling the same way.
And this is the beauty of feminism. We would not be sitting here right now, you and I, running our businesses because it's given us the opportunity to follow our passions, and yet it has come at such a huge cost to our physical, mental health, and also our sense of worth. Because, the conversation I'm having with so many more women now is, yes, there's a belief we can do everything, but because we can't, something has to give. So if you're a full-time woman in business and you could be very successful or driven in your business, and then you hit your mid-30s and then you try to have children and then you find you can't because there's all these fertility issues, and is energetically it's because you've been so in your masculine for so long, and then you add in birth control and all these other things, then it's come at a cost biologically in that sense. But then if we are mums and you are a mother and you're still working full time, there's this constant rhetoric around a sense of failure. Failure as a mother, and because they're in their masculine, I'm a failure as a mother because and this is the words and the conversations I hear all the time, I can't control everything. I can't control everything. And yet if you listen to, if you go back and think about what feminine energy is, it is not about trying to control everything. It's about being more in the state of allowing things to be let go, surrender and flow. And that's even in how we achieve things in life. so many business coaches I know now are talking about the art of surrender in business for women is actually a huge part of getting things done in business, whilst also having the masculine strategy and structure. But women are just going, they're recognizing now, I can't do it all.
Can't do it all. Yeah, I
Can't.
agree. So let's go through some of the, the things that you see imbalances in men or women when the energy might be a little bit out of balance. What are some of the signs? How can people identify that perhaps this is something they want to look into more for themselves? So we could start with women. If a woman is out of balance between her masculine and feminine energy, and she is leaning more into that masculine energy, given some good reasons, what would that show up as?
Okay, so first of all, I'll go through what it looks like emotionally. So emotionally, it's a woman who is often very starts with lack of self-worth and self-belief,
Mm.
but also very rigid in how they
Yes.
operate in their daily life, and very judgmental of themselves and judgmental of others. So that rigidity is the masculine energy. It's the structure, it's the box, it's the we do it this way. The feminine energy is the squiggly lines. So a masculine energy woman will always, without a doubt, be a control freak.
Yeah.
Total, got to be my way, to the point that if hubby was to do something at home that wasn't to her exacting standards, because she's a perfectionist, perfectionism seems to be a common connection, the trait of perfectionism, need for control, there's always this underlying tone of disappointment and nothing's ever good enough, nothing's ever good enough.
Like you don't do anything, and then when someone tries to keep up and do something, oh, it's not done the right way, or you could do it better.
Yeah. And there's the judgment there, which is the masculine. The masculine's all about judgment, because masculine's ego and it's left brain.
And I think it's really important to note that this is unconscious, meaning because I have been there myself, I was very lucky to be raised by a very feminine woman, and I completely feel like I very much have lived like that for a lot of my life. But I will say that trauma, a lot of stress, has led me into some more tipping it towards masculine in past relationships in my life. And what I want to say on this control thing is it's unconscious, meaning you don't mean to do it. It's not like you're doing it purposely, but it is something that unconsciously is a safety mechanism. Somewhere underneath it all, you think to control, it gives you a sense of safety and control, which is illusion in itself. But yeah, that's what there's nothing wrong with doing it. It's first about acknowledging that, it's just a learned behavior, which is keeping you safe.
And it's a strategy. As I say, it's just a strategy. And it comes from a place of trying to meet a need or an unmet need from childhood that you are now unconsciously, because everything's unconscious, 95%. And I'm sure you've already talked about that, you're just trying to get resolution for something that you didn't get or need as a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So control, first one, and rigidity. What else? How else does it show up?
So the other thing is within the belief system. So within the mindset is there's a very because if you think of a feminine woman, she's very in her body. She's very embodied. And those of us who have met a feminine woman will sometimes be triggered by her, because she just seems like she's just so with the flow and wishy-washy. And this is a stereotype, obviously, but I won't go into the 7 archetypes of feminine, because this is the other thing. We have 7 aspects to being in the feminine. And so the opposite of that is the woman who's just very discontent with herself and has a lot of limiting mindset and beliefs about herself. So even could present as a feminine woman on the outside, but inside, things just have to be a certain way within her appearance, within how she talks about herself. There's a lot of judgment and analysis, and basically not very nice to ourselves. Because a feminine woman is operating from her heart space, so she loves herself. Loves who she is.
Yeah, you can feel that energy in people. And I think I said this on my last podcast, but so many of us women I know have struggled with body image, comparison, societal expectations. So that's sort of another factor as to why a lot of women tend to dip into their masculine energy more often than not. I think it also can show up as just this, we'll talk about health a bit later down the track, but this need to constantly be doing,
Mhm.
constantly be achieving, and competitiveness. Because if you are balanced in your energy, you're in this belief that you trust what is for you, and you're not too worried about everyone else. But it's that like striving, which will impact our health, that I notice can really.
Oh, and I didn't even talk about this at the beginning about what the feminine energy is, but the feminine energy is intuition. It's
Mm,
being guided and led by truly deep, dropped in intuition, and this incessant need to be busy, and this judgment of, and still guilty of this myself, oh, who am I to sit down and be seen to be doing nothing? Who am I to be, taking a 5-minute magazine coffee break when, my whole entire worth is attached to how much I do. And that's
productivity.
feminism.
Mm,
That is the feminist regime. It is let's show the world what we can do. The
what we
language of it. Let's show the world what we can do.
Yeah.
Well, that's going really well for us, isn't it?
Yeah, I hear you on that completely. And it's yeah, definitely that heart-centered intuition coming back to that, which there's so many questions. There's so many ways I could go into. How do people start doing that? But before we talk on that, I do want to talk about masculine energy and males, because I know you work with males a lot as well. Males that perhaps are a bit out of balance in themselves and getting towards more of a feminine energy. How does that show up, and why is that happening as well?
Mm. So there's a number of reasons it's happening for men. One of it is unhealed childhood trauma from how
Mhm.
they were raised by their dads and their mums, especially seeing how the mother role showed up for them in terms of having a controlling mother, or having a mother
Mm,
that didn't let him show his emotions, or a young boy that didn't feel like he was heard or supported because the father role also would dumb down. Don't cry, don't be like that. So of course they're
mhm,
shut off from their feminine energy. But if they're too far in their feminine energy, what we see for men is an inability to lead. So they can't
mhm,
make decisions, lack purpose. The feminine energy boy who's in his sort of ADHD brain, or the man who's just in fight or flight, he can't
mhm,
make decisions, he can't lead. There's this need for external validation,
mhm,
but not from a healthy way. So it's like the peacock, the peacock of the bird is the one that has all the feathers and loves to be noticed and loves to be seen. But when a man is strongly in his masculine energy, he leads with a forthright power of wanting to be appreciated by the feminine. But if he feels like he's not appreciated by the feminine, then he shuts down. And so any man who's in a relationship with an over masculine woman, he shuts down his masculine, and he becomes very timid, unable to stand up for himself, unable to set boundaries, not able to discipline children, unable to
mhm,
take his own lead in the family dynamic. So wouldn't dare sort of give any advice on maybe we should try this, because of course his masculine has been shut down so many times by the feminine that he now is just too scared to say anything. And
mhm,
a lot of self-sabotaging behavior. So,
mhm,
that doing things that take them out of that strong core, this is who I am, this is what I'm
mhm.
here to do, this is what I'm here to create.
So questioning themselves and their power
Completely.
from within.
No,
And
and it's that masculine core. Like I always say, if you could just imagine the masculine core, it's the rocks. They're
yeah,
unwavering, they're
yeah.
assertive. And so the opposite to that is they are doubtful, self-doubting, self-loathing. They seek attention for their physical appearance, not because they are actually feeling it on the inside, but because they seek some sort of external recognition to make up for
Mhm.
what they're not feeling internally. Because a deeply grounded masculine man is just that rock in the Grand Canyon, in the riverbed. He's unwavering, he's
Yeah.
solid, he's consistent. He can listen without trying to fix. But often when a man's in an unhealthy masculine balance, he's too busy trying to fix everything and he can't actually just sit there and listen and hold space.
Mm.
Yeah, but it's
Oh,
fair.
look, my brain's going on so many directions because there's so many questions and ways we could go with this. I do want to talk about relationships and health. I'm like, oh, should I go for both or one? Because it might lead into a big conversation. But quickly on relationships, what I've found is that typically in a dynamic, again, doesn't matter about the gender, there'll be one that will step more into more masculine, one that will step more into feminine to balance things out. Would that be accurate to say?
That's exactly, in the description of what happens to the masculine man when he's with a masculine woman is, and in some relationships it works. In some
Yep.
relationships, she is the masculine energy and he's the feminine, and that's why it works, because there's an
Yeah.
80-20 balance. So you do
Yeah.
80 one way, 20 the other, and then for it to be balanced, you flip it the other way. So sometimes it works, but when the woman is really strongly masculine, what it can do with the masculine man is it triggers in him all of his insecurities. So he also becomes quite reactive and quite temper tantrum kind of reaction to anything, any feedback, anything that might be said, because his whole entire, this is what I see in relationships, his whole entire self-worth has been diminished because, like you said earlier, nothing he ever does is good enough. So why would I even bother? So then they become apathetic, and then the frustration levels of the woman rises. But because she can't let go of the need to control everything, because she's so in her masculine, the man completely withdraws and becomes distant and avoidant, which then also further triggers her, I've got to do everything energy. And then we've got this complete imbalance in the relationship. And this is the pattern I see all the time, because I'm working with a lot of women who are very, just not, like all the reasons I mentioned at the beginning, not feeling good in themselves. And so they can't actually see, like you said, unconscious, that what they are doing is part of the problem. And they think their partner's the problem. I want him to step up. I want him to lead more. And then when you actually say to them, okay, let's come into your body. How does it feel to let him lead? There is a complete shutdown. No, it doesn't feel safe. So then we go, well, why are they in their masculine energy in the first place? Because they don't feel safe in their bodies. And it's so connected to your work.
Waiting for you to pinpoint that, otherwise I was going to jump in and say,
don't feel safe in their body.
And I'm going to do some more teachings on this in the second half of the year, but I believe that connecting to our bodies and feeling safe within ourselves first is the core to then, that is going to impact our relationships further out. So, okay, how do we start to do that? If a woman is listening and she's resonating, a woman in particular, because we have gone there more so on this episode, and she's thinking, oh, I'm a control freak. I want him to step up and lead, but I can't quite, I don't know where to start. I don't like my body. How can we start to connect to the body? I know it takes creating space. What would you say?
So I had the 4 pillars. These are the 4 pillars to creating that deep embodied work. And this has been part of my own personal journey. When I realized I was very much in my masculine within relationship. The first step is healing. And that requires you to work with someone. You can't do that on your own. You can start the journey on your own. But, I look at a lot of women who start the healing journey and it's through reading books. Well, no, you don't need any more logic brain stuff. You first of all need to understand your own unconscious mind and heal the triggers within your nervous system that have caused you to be like this. Then it's all about shifting your mindset by starting to believe differently about yourself, which is what the healing triggers. So you have healing, which triggers a new set of beliefs about yourself, which is the mindset. Energetic work, so shifting the energy in your body, so shifting the tension, the stress, the nervous system dysregulation, all the things you talk about with chronic pain. And then from that, then you get to do the fourth thing, which is come into your body and be fully embodied in your own body. But you can't do, it's a loop. It's a cyclic process because they all work beautifully together, especially if you're working with a healer who does the body work, because that's the thing that allows you to feel safe in your body, which then allows you to fully drop into being embodied.
Sure. Yeah, I think, I personally, I know you've had quite a journey on moving into more of a balance. I also have. And I'll explain a few things that I've done that have really helped me shift. So, particularly in the last few years, I was thrown into survival mode. I also had a lot of other things going on as well. So, naturally, to keep my business afloat, to keep my life afloat, I was in my masculine energy. But in this process, it also, I think when we're going through big life shifts, we start to notice other patterns come up that have been survival patterns for a period of years.
Hmm.
So, what it looked like for me was getting really honest with myself for a start, really reflecting on my relationships and my patterns in relationships, and taking feedback from beautiful people I had been in a relationship with before. Some of you will know I went to Bali, so I did a lot of slowing down and prioritizing myself. And I know that's going to look like different for everyone else, but based on what time you have, making space. I stopped all these workouts. I really looked at how I was nourishing my body. I had to slow down and I had to face myself in the ways I was showing up. So it is confronting and it does take a level of reflection. And like Sonja said, looking at traumas, I've done quite a lot of different stuff in that area. But we have to do that. Otherwise, we will tend to keep running with the same patterns we've always known, which is I'll work harder, I'll keep going. You will burn yourself out. And I know you will burn yourself out because I've been there myself, and that's what I see in my clients. So, if you're resonating, you can switch into new energies. When you change in yourself, everything around you shifts. If someone's changing within, your relationship naturally is going to change because you're showing up differently. So rather than put the expectation on everyone else to change, focus on you so that people will naturally change around you. They will step up around you.
That is it in a nutshell. If I could, I almost want to get a t-shirt printed. It starts with you. Because it is. And if you look at it, so like I said, my 4 pillars were energetics. It was so much of what you mentioned is embodied within that work. Because when you start the healing journey, the first part of the healing journey, like you said, was the first thing you did was acknowledging your role and your place. And so then when you realize that you're the passion, you're the trigger, everything's within you, you're the one. And that's the healing part, is that then your energy shifts now of everything, because what are we talking about here? Feminine, masculine energy. When you think about it as being energy, when your internal energy shifts because you've healed, because you've done the work and you're doing the work, then of course everything outside of you and your outer world is going to be a reflection of exactly what you've been doing for yourself. And so I can hear all the women out there right now going, I don't have the time. I don't know how. Rah, rah, rah. It would just be so much easier if they changed. Really? Well, how's that going for you? And as soon as you have that moment of, it's up to me. And this is the one thing I hear actually, Bianca, all the time from women. Why does it have to be me that does the thing? And I go, well, you've had no problem doing the thing to this point. So why don't you just do the thing, but do it differently? And then you'll see the shifts and the change. And I say the reason it has to be us, and this is why the planet is healing in the next few decades, is because women are finding this inside of themselves to do this work, is because we are the guardians of the connection. It's our role. It has always been the woman's role. We are the guardians of the connection. And when we learn to love and accept ourselves, everyone else around us gets to come up into that same space. That is why. So it's selfish and selfless and selfish all at once.
Yeah. And it's so uncomfortable for so many people, including myself, the amount of responsibility that I've had to let go of personally over the last few years, after having that as one of my core patterns, based on what I'd witnessed, a lot of it growing up. I've had to face that and work on undoing responsibility myself. So this is just a reminder that it's never too late. It's actually about acknowledging and seeing where your patterns are playing out. That is the first step. So I want to talk on health, just because I know you as well work a lot with health issues and you see certain things coming through with your clients. What health issues do you see that you believe are linked to an imbalance in energy. And of course, that leading to certain patterns showing up in the way people are operating. I personally believe that a lot of women coming to me at the moment are feeling completely burnt out, and it's that responsibility and control thing. And also bringing up their relationships as well. And I tend to see a link between autoimmune issues and chronic pain, because it is my belief as well that chronic pain can sometimes be linked to underlying unprocessed emotions such as anger. But yeah, what about you? What are patterns you see?
It's the same for me. It is chronic fatigue is the big one. Chronic fatigue. Women who struggle with cycle issues. So if you think about the feminine energy being deeply embodied in the womb space, in the creative space, and remember, if we're not in our feminine, we're not in our creative, and the creative energy is the womb space, the sacral energy center. So all this and the biochemical as well from the birth control pill is you're now seeing, because we're shutting down our feminine energy. If you actually think of it from a biochemical, we are shutting down our feminine energy by being long-term on birth control. So we're not in our natural cycles. So endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, infertility issues, chronic fatigue, autoimmune, all those ones, osteoarthritis, arthritis. Because here's the thing about those ones, the musculoskeletal conditions, which is arthritis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid, they have a core deep belief system attached to them of I am not worthy enough and I am not good enough. So if you think about why is a woman trying to control her environment and make it perfect? Because she doesn't feel like she's worthy enough and she doesn't feel like she's good enough. And so then, which makes it all easy because it's all interconnected. So then
it is all interconnected. All my podcasts as well would have a running theme.
I know. So when you can identify the specific belief system that the woman has, that's what I see. So it's musculoskeletal conditions as well, and dare I say it, breast cancer. Breast cancer is a big one related to loss of nurture, self-nurture.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring it up, because I think some people would assume that based on my previous experience that I wouldn't have the same belief, but I do. And I very much understand the role of emotions in all chronic illnesses, including cancer. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's a place that not a lot of people are willing to go. And I don't, we're not saying everything. There's so many factors involved.
It's emotions which cause chronic stress, which cause inflammation, which cause oxidative stress, which cause illness and disease. So it's all connected in. So people say, oh, I'm just chronically stressed. Well, for what reason are you chronically stressed? So if you break it all down, there's 6, root causes of illness and disease. Yes, there's the chemical aspect. We're in a toxic environment. We live in a toxic world. And yet the inflammation is being driven so much by chronic stress. And that is so linked to how we feel about ourselves and the world around us and unhealed trauma.
Absolutely. You're talking my language. So I agree on. I fully believe that to be true. So where do we head with this stuff? If again, speaking more on women, if we start to connect with ourselves, if we start to connect with our bodies, if we let go of needing to control everything, take responsibility, reprioritize what success is and what it means, take the pressure off having to do it all, be it all at the same time, do you think things will shift?
Yes.
What will it be?
Oh, well, I had this conversation with a client. I've had this conversation twice this week with 2 women who at present are not working. They have very young children, and they had a belief that they were not enough or providing or adding enough to family society because they weren't providing financially. And I just sat there and I went, you are doing the most important job in the world right now, which is raising your children. Your children are not going to look back in 15 years time and go, I'm really glad my mum bought me that iPad. They are going to remember the vital, and this is not a judgment on women who are working, by the way. I understand it's in this
necessities.
And this is not this, but what I'm trying to remind women out there who would prefer to spend a bit more time with their children and feel like that's not a valuable role. That is absolutely not the case. It is the complete opposite. We know that the role of the woman, the feminine woman within the mother, it's called the mother archetype within our society and in raising children is so important. But the stepping stone to all of this is acceptance of where you are right now. Just learning to soften your language and just say, I understand where I am right now is not where I want to be or could, would prefer to be, but I'm just going to learn to accept that where I am right now it's all I know right now and it's all I knew and that's okay. Talk to yourself like you would talk to your own children.
Yeah, go back to my last episode.
Yes, which is the one I loved. I was like, yes, it's so good.
Listen to that because, self-compassion, self-acceptance is at the root first. Knowing that within we are always enough and we have to start treating ourselves for that to be true, that we're just playing out patterns. And a lot of it is so unconscious from society's expectations as well that we have to forgive ourselves for showing up in ways that perhaps we are unlearning.
Yeah. And so when someone says, what do you do? Is that do word again. I have got I say to my clients, reframe it. I've got the most important job in the world right now. I'm raising my children. No one argues with that. No one will go, oh, well, you mean you don't work? I've got the most important job in the world right now. I'm very blessed to be able to, I'm just giving one example, but there's so many other ways that women can look at everything we do that's from the place of our heart is providing value to the world around us.
Yeah.
And so knowing that and always just rechecking in and learning to heal guilt and just saying, I'm just doing the best I can with the resources I have. And there's no judgment on that.
Mm-hmm. And even if, because I know things are hard out there and I'll be the first to say it's hard running a business, being single, doing it all alone, like naturally, if you guys were to look at where I was at in life, you'd be like, oh, she needs to be a new masculine energy. But there's small things I do for myself. I tune in with my body every day rather than out of a place of I must do this, which I operated from for many years. I check in. Do I need, where am I at in my cycle? So there's so many rigidities that we've learned. Counting calories, exercise. I need to do all these things. It's just about that daily check-in as to where can I do something slightly different or where can I tune into what I want rather than
what you need.
Yeah.
And that's something I didn't mention before, but we run on a 28-day cycle, men run on a 24-hour, and that whole I can do it all. That's been my same with you, Bianca, recently. As I just listen and I now accept that there may be a whole week where I will not go to the gym and do any form of weight training. And watching women who are trying to force themselves into F45 classes when that's just not what your body needs. The amount of women that start losing weight when they just slow down and do less to achieve more.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Well, I might have to have you back on a whole podcast around that because I've got other things I want to talk about around the birth control and hormones, and I know you know a lot in that area too.
Or learning
this
a
has
lot.
Been, aren't we all? This has been such a awesome chat, Sonja, and I really appreciate you sharing all of this because I know so many women and men out there will be able to connect with these conversations because I keep hearing it daily and I've made this commitment to myself that I will speak on things that I'm going through, but also things I'm passionate about. And I've really this has been front and center of what I've been working on myself for quite a while now. So working on, look, these are languages as well, letting go of patterns I'm letting go of.
Yes.
So yes, do you want to share a little bit more about, if people are connecting, how they can work with you, what you've got coming up?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. That's where I mainly hang out these days. Sonja Courtis, which is my name, which will be on the show notes. And I've got in about a month's time, I've actually got a 12-week program coming up called it's named You Are Enough. And it's going to be helping women to really break down those things we've talked about, giving really useful tools and strategies, even though that's a very masculine wording, it's still, they work, and just ways that we're going to be doing healing. We're going to be looking at ourselves, identifying our patterns, lovingly releasing what no longer works, and digging deep for 12 weeks. So I'll be there to hold space for the women in this program. I'm really excited about it because I've never done a 12-week program before, yet to be able to provide that container for people for such a period of time, I know is going to be really, so healing. And so I'm going to be pulling in everything I've been doing and what's helped me, and that's what everyone else is going to get as part of that.
Yeah, and you have definitely had a journey,
Oh, yeah.
which I won't even start on that, but in a positive way. I feel like you've manifested many things into your
Yeah.
life. And what about one-to-one? Do you
Yeah, I
work
do
with
one-to-one coaching as well. Definitely 4 and 6 month programs for people who
Yep.
really want to dive really deep. And that's deep somatic healing. That's deep mind body healing. And
Yeah.
that offers you the you know how you said the change within. This is
Yeah.
the work that changes the inside to make the outside work.
Yeah. And that's not just limited to women, is it?
No,
Just
men as well.
to clarify.
Yeah, definitely work with men.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonja. And thank you guys again for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode if you connect to some of the things we've been talking about. So please continue to reach out on Instagram and connect with me. Until then, I will see you guys on the next episode.